And Ryan Rowland-Smith is with us. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. How you fellas?
We're doing great. We're talking about a first-place Seattle Mariner team. How about that? This team just continues to find ways to get it done. It's just I want to get your take on the two young pitchers we've seen. We've seen Emerson Hancock, who we saw a number of times last year, and he's since that first disastrous start, he's been really good his last two. Yeah. And then we saw Logan Evans make his debut, goes 5 innings, gives up just 2 runs. Does that provide any level? And I know it's early. We're talking about a 1 start from Evans, and we've seen that Hancock a few times. Does that give you any comfort looking forward with the idea that they're not going to be able to re-sign all 4 of these guys? Talking about Gilbert and Kirby and Bryce and Wu. So assuming you lose 2 of them. Seeing what's in the pipeline, did this give you any level of comfort? Like, okay, should that happen, when it happens, we're going to be okay?
Yeah, I think first of all, the Mariners. We talked about this during spring training. Have it depends on who you ask, whether it's the number 1 farm system, top 5 farm system, top 3 farm system, but across the board, really, really strong. But the one thing that kind of stood out is when you look at the minor league system, you looked at it in regards to the big prospects, and they're all offensive players, and you're like, well, where's the pitching? Where are the pitching reinforcements? And I haven't gone as deep into thinking about locking guys up or losing guys as much just recently. I'm kind of focused on some of this good offense we're seeing at the moment. But it was nice to see a 12th round draft pick in Logan Evans, who, by the way, if you look at his college numbers, I mean, he was terrible. And the Mariners really took a big chance by even drafting him in the 12th round. And I know it's about stuff and everything else, but, man, that was refreshing to see that for a couple reasons. But first of all, Emerson Hancock, who, we've talked about on the show a couple times more lately, and then at the end of last year, he has a really big chance to be a guy who, if he can just get that option with 2 strikes, we've talked about that a bunch, man, with the command and the sink and change up early in counts, he's got weapons to make him really good. And then you look at that and say, all right, well, you've got the 5 starters who, if you look into a crystal ball and say you can't lock them up, well, then what are the reinforcements? But then you see Logan Evans yesterday, and it's just, again, it goes back to this situation the Mariners have where they can pump out pitching from a foundational standpoint, I'm telling you, better than any other team. And what I mean by that is this: if you can get a Logan Evans, young kid who was, all over YouTube and Twitter in high school just trying to chase stuff, and he gets drafted and he's just a thrower. You get him into a system, he looks up and says, okay, guys are in the big leagues. Their strike percentage is through the roof. They pinpoint what part of the strike zone they're going to attack, and then everything goes off that. They win counts, all these little things that I'm telling you, sometimes it is eyewash, man. Sometimes you have some minor league director saying, oh, yeah, you have to do the Mariners' way of doing things, whether it's offense, pitching, or dominate the zone. It can sometimes sound like some little slogan, but when you have like I said, when you have a kid, when you look at his college numbers and what he looked like when he was in college, to buy in like that, I'm telling you, man, there's more reinforcements beyond Logan Evans because they do things right on the pitching side. So very refreshing. And to your point as well, look, you're not going to be able to keep all these guys, and there's going to be injuries involved. We're seeing that at the moment. So it was refreshing, man, to see the progression from a kid just a couple of years ago to where he's at now, and he was polished. He looked really good.
Yeah, you had a conversation with some of the relievers, and they were talking about some of the things in the bullpen that the Mariners do that is so great as far as coaching goes. But as far as just the whole thing in general, like you said, they just have a way of developing pitchers, and they have an eye for talent. And what can you identify? Is there a person or some way that they're looking at pitchers that's different than everybody else?
Yeah, well, I think what helps. And you got George Kirby to thank. You got Brian Wu to thank. Logan Gilbert even. And I'm not going to throw Bryce Miller because I think he was looking at those guys saying, oh, man, okay, I get it. Stuff-wise, I'm all good. Stuff, I'm good enough to pitch in the big leagues. And by the way, there's hundreds of those guys who are in AA and AAA across every organization. But you look up and say, oh, I see what goes on here. The organization I'm in, if I can win this 1-1 count, in other words, if I go 1-2 way higher percentage than they go 2-1. It sounds pretty obvious. But what the Mariners do a really good job in doing is, beyond just throwing a fastball down the middle to get into a good count, they identify and say, all right, your best secondary pitch to throw strikes at a comfort level where you are extremely confident can get you to a 1-2 count way better than this pitch or this location to get you to a 2-1 count. And guess what? When you get to a 1-2 count, I'm going to show you in front of you, this is how your numbers are going to look as opposed to being in 2-1 counts. Now, that seems really simple. It's not. I'm telling you right now, it's not. Because when you're a young pitcher, and I'll talk about the bullpen guys in just a second, but when you're coming up through the system, you're like, yeah, okay, I'll throw gas, throw 96, 97. All right, I throw this really good breaking ball because the TrackMan says so. Yet, if you don't have confidence or you get 60 feet away from you, that kid just crushes it in A ball, and you're kind of guessing, saying, oh, maybe my slider's not that good, or maybe this pitch isn't that good. Then all of a sudden you're in a system that says, actually, you know what? This pitch is really good. However, when you throw it in this count, this is why it's getting hit. And you can identify that. And then, by the way, you look up and say, oh, okay, well, it worked for Bryce Miller, who's just above me. It obviously worked for George Kirby, Brian Wood. They're strike throwers. I kind of need to start throwing strikes. I don't need to be nasty anymore. I need to win. I'm going to win this battle by winning counts. With all that being said, I remember being a young pitcher, and I was lucky. I was a lefty, wasn't throwing super hard, but I was chasing velocity because I had to and because I enjoyed it. But I was lucky because when I was in A-ball, when I was 18, 19, we had like Jamie Moyer, John Halama, like dudes. I'm like, man, they can get away with throwing like 85 with a good changeup. Guess what? Every lefty in the organization, they could pitch inside like those guys could. A lot of them didn't have plus velocity. We'll give them more chances because of the dudes in the big leagues. You had to learn how to throw a changeup. You had to learn how to get into good counts, all those things, because you look up and say, oh, they're the guys who are above me right now. And I think that's what's happened with the Mariners in the last 2 to 3 years.
So what do you make of the offense we're seeing? This team's at plus 15 run differential, the best in the division. Back-to-back weeks with the player of the week. It was Dylan Moore. Now it's Jorge Polanco, who's just on an absolute tear, only hitting from the left side. J.P. Crawford is absolutely scorching hot. I mean, it's just – let me ask you about J.P. quickly, because I put this question out to our listeners. Would you move him back into that leadoff spot right now, considering how hot he is, or are you just like – I don't want to. He was hitting ninth. They had him in the 6th spot yesterday. Would you just leave it alone and just it's not broke, so don't fix it, or what would you do?
I think first of all, a couple things. I would say no. The reason why is I'm going to contradict myself here a little bit. JP, when he was hitting in that 9-hole, and we're talking every day, not platooning, not if hey there's left on left. Sorry, take a seat. We're going to get a righty in there. When you have him in that 9-hole, what happens is when you're pitching against a lineup that has a J.P. Crawford-style hitter in the 9-hole, what happens is you're not just going to beat him with stuff or get in a good count and you're just going to get weak contact. He makes you throw 5 to 6 pitches literally every time. I mean, and this is Mariners, they lead the league in 3-ball counts. It's ridiculous. But J.P. gets you to a place, and we saw this against Garrett Crochet, man, who plus stuff back in Boston. You have to make pitches because guess what? All of a sudden the lineup turns over. And then you got to – I know Julio's struggling in this lineup. I get it. But Julio's no fun to face. And then on top of that, you got Polanco behind him and Cal Raleigh, right? So you get to that 9-hole, you're like, all right, just make your pitches and you're going to be good, weak contact, getting out. You can't do that with JP. It makes such a difference when at the bottom of the lineup, and we've seen it with this team, that – when you have the number one, the at-bats where you 5 or 6 pitches and you're getting absolutely exhausted, makes such a difference to the quality of pitches at the top of the lineup, number one. But number 2, I think with JP, he slid up to the 6-hole yesterday. The reason he was able to do that is because Leo Rivas is basically a little mini JP. He's like an on-base machine. It's ridiculous. The difference, the chase percentage and the take percentage with Leo Rivas is night and day from last year. I mean, he's cut, though. I'm not saying cut in half. I mean, he's done better than that on the chase percentage. But when you have Leo Rivas, all of a sudden you can go, okay, hold on a minute. Now we can start messing with JP a little bit. But I do like him down the bottom of the lineup. I just think that he's more consistent than some of these other guys in regards to getting those deep counts. And I think that makes such a tougher job for starting pitchers. And we've seen it, man. We've seen Garrett Crochet. I'll go back to Brian Bayer that night. We saw Max Meyer, who, by the way, yesterday with the Marlins, he's punched out 14 the outing before that. Mm-hmm. He couldn't get through 4 innings. The reason why is because some of these at-bats, and especially when you're going deep into that lineup. So I think you leave JP where he's at.
Anyone that you're concerned about? Bob was just bringing up Trent Thornton, who has given up some home runs lately.
5.
Any level of I wasn't gonna mention the number.
Leads the team.
But yeah, is he it, or is there anything to be worried about there?
Yeah, I think that, I'm not worried about Trent Thornton, and I'll get to a couple offensive guys here in a minute. Trent Thornton, I think, because, look, bullpen arms, they go through these 1 or 2 or 3 outings or 5 home runs, if you want to throw them under a bus, and then all of a sudden they go through.
He's only pitched 11 1/3 innings. He's given up 5 home runs.
I know, but you know what? There's flashes of what we may see once everything sort of levels out. Like, look at Colin Snyder, man. If you looked at him at the beginning of the year, I mean, you were close to saying, I might have to DFA this dude. Now, all of a sudden, he's figured it out. So, bullpen, I've been there before where you give up a batch of home runs, whatever, and then you kind of figure some stuff out. And it just takes 1 or 2 pitches. So, by the way, there's reinforcements too. Matt Brash is coming back soon. Troy Taylor is going to get consistent. So, I'm not too worried about the bullpen. Offensively, man, I just really want to see some patterns out of Julio Rodriguez, which are on the plus side, if you know what I'm saying. Like, some of the things like the aggressiveness, he's swinging a ton at first pitches. The ground ball rate is high again. He's back to where he's hitting so many balls on the ground. He's got 10 strikeouts where it's lasted 3 pitches. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm looking at some of these numbers from Julio, I'm like, man, come on. We want to see, and we talk about this all the time, and someone asked me, hey, look, can the Mariners get it done if Julio Rodriguez is just okay? And I don't think so. I think when he goes off, we all know what happens to the offense. I want to see Julio where it's just this consistent. You get a mistake, you crush it. And we're just not seeing that. Some of the swing and miss inside the strike zone is through the roof as well. So just some patterns I'm seeing where it's like, man, it's again, we talk about the start. I know it's still early. We're still, 28th of April, still the first month in the season. But, man, the chase, the swing and miss on secondary pitches. He's chased 38% of breaking balls. That's up there. That's one of the highest. I can go down the list of just some of the patterns we're talking about beyond the numbers with Julio. Man, I'd love to see him get to a place where everything's comfortable, quiet. He made some adjustments with his swing. I hate it when he goes back and forth with that swing. Just be an athlete. But yeah, that's one thing. I'm hoping it can break out of this sooner rather than later.
Ryan, that's the first time that you have brought that up first before us.
What's that?
Julio.
I'm always glass half full with him. I'm just watching him and just diving into some of the other numbers, especially from the patterns of the approach, the swing decisions, the plate discipline, some of those numbers, man, it's like, come on, dude, you just back yourself a little bit more because he's so good. We know that. But, yeah, I'm hoping he can figure this out. Can you imagine this offense if Julio just starts crushing balls, man? It'd be ridiculous.
Well, and I'm wondering from your perspective as a guy that's been in that clubhouse and you go over a film or you'll watch, what you're doing well, what you're not doing well. If we're sitting at home and I'm watching him at the plate going, they're going to bust him up and in with hard stuff, and then they're going to go off speed, low and away, and he's not going to handle either one of those. If I'm at home saying that, and that's what they're doing, and he's still chasing off speed, low and away off the plate, how is he not? Is he just not recognizing the pitches come when they're coming? He's not seeing the spin, or how do you explain him consistently doing that? And it's not just this season. We've seen that just kind of throughout his career. He just seems to be a sucker for off speed, low and away, and he can't cover a fastball up and in.
I think a couple things when I look at that. First of all, I don't mind him being aggressive, right? So I talked about him. And again, these are like predictable patterns when you're writing up a scouting report. So I always look at these hitters as if I'm facing them. Like, how would I pitch Julio? I know he's going to swing. Very high chance he's going to swing first pitch. Mm-hmm. He hasn't had any success really on the first pitch, except he hit that home run. I was like, wow, here we go. All right, this is good. Now you can't all of a sudden groove pitches early on the count. But then it gets to a place where it's like, all right, you can pitch him in. He can keep those hands inside. The contact is not going to be really good. So I can say this and say, all right, I can pitch him up and in here. I'm not going to, the result's not going to be great against, from his point of view. The minute I get to a minute I get to strike one, I can mess around and go 1-1, 2-1 because I can expand the strike zone on him, and then I know I'm going to get that swing and miss. So it's easier for me to get to 2 strikes. Once I get to 2 strikes, you can you can expand against him. So that when I'm looking at that now, Julio would own me when he's on. With my stuff. I know that. He's so athletic and so talented, so strong, and everything else. But when you start to, dissect and pick apart a hitter, when you're facing him, you're coming in the next day or a couple of days later or whatever it may be, and you look at him and say, man, I can get to these, and I said this earlier, these predictable patterns. Man, it's not good. So I just think that he may be one swing away, might be 3 for 4, or a one swing decision away where he doesn't chase that breaking ball, gets the fastball middle to change everything. Who knows? But I just think right now it's just a little bit too predictable. Where these other guys aren't, man. JP is not predictable, or a Polanco is not predictable. You can't throw a ball. If you're watching at home, that little square you see, which is the strike zone, if a white thing goes inside that, he is murdering that ball. Polanco is insane right now. It's ridiculous.
If a white thing goes in there.
I'm glad you put it in terms I could understand, Ryan.
Yeah.
That's what it was like.
Oh, good stuff, Ryan. We appreciate
Thanks, Ryan.
it. Keep crushing it on the broadcast. You're doing a great job, and always fun talking to you each week. Thanks so much, man.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it.